So, hello everybody. Very good to have you here, Q. It was a very impressive presentation on the stage. I like it very much. And
Thank
I
you.
think everything you do is really impressive.
Thank
So,
you.
I have seen some Q&As, but never so many people. So probably you have a sort of magnet with you that's relevant.
Woo! Thank you. I'm cheering for y'all. Thank you. It's not possible without them.
And now, guys, please, I open the floor to you. Let you start with the questions. If not, I will start, but then I will not stop. So better you start.
Hey there.
Hi.
I'm not Japanese. I'm Chinese.
Oh,
Chinese
okay.
background, but
Oh.
I actually work here and live in Cluj-Napoca
Okay.
in Romania for 4 years. First question, I have a bunch of questions, but the first one is I'm very curious. What's your motivation? You go to Japan and start to. Maybe I missed in the beginning of your lecture, but I'm very interested of your motivation, and then I'll come with further questions.
I was shocked. Like, Japan was the first country I went to where WTF was more than just an acronym. It was actually a actual livid experience. Like, I didn't believe it. I thought I caught lightning in a bottle the first time. And so I actually went back. I was like, this can't be true. I was dreaming, like, pour water on me. And I went back and it got better. And I went back again and I was like, all right, I have to learn the language. And, I did realize very quickly that you have to assimilate into the culture. But the motivation, to answer your question, was I've never been somewhere where you can be a young entrepreneur. So how old was I? Man, this is 2018. So I might have been like 22, 21.
22?
22, 21, and I'm working with the largest companies in Japan and helping them with their future of work plans. Like what we would now see as AI readiness, entrepreneurship, and a lot of those ideas that we consulted on are some of the same stuff I just presented on stage. And so, like, they adopted, and they didn't adopt everything 100%, but there's very few places in the world you can go and, like, they'll say, oh, we'll listen to you. And when I went back, like, the fifth time, this is an interesting story. So obviously I write books and I'm an international bestseller. One of my books was translated in Japanese. The Minister of Digital actually promoted my book.
No.
I don't go to countries that often, and the Minister of Digital in Japan is not like a small country in the sense of its GDP. It's still the third or fourth largest GDP in the world. It's falling and it's falling right now because the currency is a little weak, but this is still a major economy, and to have that impact, I thought that was just super fascinating. So that was why I got intrigued. It's been one heck of an experience. I'm not going to say it's easy. Like, this is one of the things that does keep me on my toes. And I'll tell you all here very candidly, whether I'm successful or I fail, I'm actually okay with that, being that this has probably been the second biggest learning that I've ever had in my life. Like, it's trumped college. It feels like I'm back in university. Like, I don't know anything, and everything I learned about management, everything I learned about current, like, capital and currency and finances, like anything you can take in a business that you would say pretty well, that I know fundamentally pretty well. Japan has challenged that assumption, and it never fails to just punch you in the face. And so that's exciting because that's how you grow as an entrepreneur. Like, you don't become an entrepreneur and say, oh, I never want to go out and be challenged. You actually do want those challenging moments. And that's also what helps you build the grit and the vigor to have a moat. So you're well defined by that opportunity. So that's where the motivation comes from. It's super exciting. And I'm here to take any more questions.
I can feel that from your answer. So second one, not sure whether there are others and might have the similar question, but for me, I'm in the business position. So yes, we have how can I say, mother company from China, but we also have a presence in Japan as well. So my interest is one of the comments you said that Japan market need a lot of help from Europe. So I want you to give a little bit more like insights in what area, direction they might need our help so that we can prepare for the opportunity coming. Yeah.
Wonderful question, and I'll answer it like this. One, I'm gonna try to make it specific to Romania because I'm at Texylvania, so I'm not gonna give all the keys away. But if I was in Romania, there's a ton of dev shops, tons of opportunities where people are exporting talent. And what I would say is when you think about the infrastructure, Japan has to support, quite a good number of people. And they do it right now off of their internal systems, their internal processes. But their workforce is declining. I mean, the average age in Japan is 55. So you accelerate that 10 years, there's going to be a lot more people retiring, a lot more people worried about health issues, a lot more people thinking about what they want to do in their retirement. And they're not really going to want to work as much as they are currently or have did in the past. And so if you're not, pouring water into the cup and you're taking water out of the cup, eventually you're not going to have any water in the cup. And so if you have the talent, you have the services, you can now be in a position where the government is aiding and enabling companies that are foreign based to say, hey, let's make it happen. And so that's what I would do is I would look at what we offer. I would say if you already have a presence in Japan, now having your Europe office go to Japan and having that conversation start, that's something that needs to happen like today, tomorrow. And then you need to take detailed notes and then you have to say where are the cultural alignment that is just not going to work just because the hours are rough or the no one's going to change their customs over here. And then you have to kind of build a go-between. If it's an intermediary, that's one thing. If it's something else, that's another thing. But that's like the strategy, I think, that works best.
Okay, my last question. Okay.
All right, I'll answer it
So
fast.
why Japanese company want to go to Europe from your point of view? Go to Romania, not go to China. Okay, China is also cheap.
Oh, because I mean,
last one.
it's an Asian racist thing, right? Like there's a lot of there's a lot of. I mean, this is the thing, right? Like there's a lot of like hatred between the inner Asian.
I know.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah,
and so they.
I'm
like,
coming from the area exactly.
So
I know that.
yeah. So I'm not being disrespectful. That's just what it is. And so they'd rather work with certain people or certain cultures because there's like a beef of sorts between the two. So it's weird. I get that. I told y'all all of this makes me go WTF. Like literally every single time I operate in this environment and climate. But that's the reason why you just don't go to China. And also there's a lot there.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We have a question here in the front row. Thank you very much.
I've seen you've co-founded a marketplace for digital art, and my question is, how open is Japan in embracing a startup, my startup, that wants to use technology to increase the sales of cultural products like artworks, books, and
Huge. There's a lot of Russian companies doing that right now in Japan, but I mean, there's not enough. So to answer your question, like there is a lot of room and opportunity, whether you're using blockchain or not. The difference here, though, is you have to make that relationship. So you have to go over there and become accustomed. And if you're not going to do it, enable somebody or work with someone that's already there that can understand your business and understand how to work with Japanese people, because that is a really important thing. And if you get that wrong, you set the wrong first impression. And if you set the wrong first impression, it's just not going to happen. I mean, you can ask Yosuke. He's from Tokyo. Yosuke, if I piss off a Japanese businessman, am I going to do a deal with them?
They're not going to return your email.
There you go. You're not going to hear from them. So that's important. And there's a lot that goes into it. So getting that right can be the deal breaker for you, literally. And it can get really weird.
Thank you.
So we have a question in the second row and then also back there.
A bit of context to my question. First of all, I see a lot of Japanese coming to Europe, enjoying Europe a lot, to work in Europe, and they never want to go back to Japan. So I'm not sure Japanese are against change. But I think they are very conservative, meaning that they don't like to lose face and they don't like to challenge. So I think these are barriers that are cultural and so deep embedded into the country that are very difficult to change. On top of this, if you look at for example, the regulation, you have people that work in the same company for life. They every 2 years change job, so they never become a specialist in one particular aspect of the business. So do you think to have 100 unicorns is the right objective for the government in Japan?
Man, that's a great question. It's an ambitious goal, and I agree with you. Like, there's a ton of young people that go to that two ways this falls. They either go to school in Japan and then they leave Japan and they never come back, or they go to school in Japan, leave Japan, go to university, then come back to Japan and become a lifer, but they don't pick an industry that's really going to contribute to the overall economic growth of the country. And politics is a great example of that. Like, they don't have any young people in politics. And when you forecast this out 15, 20 years out, well, it works today, but like, there's a reason why there's AI mayoral candidates running for government in Japan. Like, I mean, and this isn't something that happened this year. This happened a few years ago. So that's how advanced Japan has been on the, like, hey, we need to adopt AI. The craziest story that I've seen, and then I'll answer your question, is there is a preschool that is open in a whole city that has one student in it. So you have to run a whole preschool for one child. Now that's weird for the child. That's weird for the community. That's just weird all in all. And that's in Japan right now. So to answer your question, like 100 unicorns by 2027, I think what it does is it shows us what's possible. So even if they get 50% of that goal, you know, that's still a heck of an accomplishment in, you know, just a few years. And it also shows, you know, what's going to work, and then they can, you know, reinvest and divert efforts. So I think it's an ambitious goal to see how close can we get, and then you're going to pull some levers to make adjustments based on it. But I think that there's going to be some people that come up with some really crazy creative solutions. And don't forget, like, one thing that we didn't really foresee was the advent of generative AI. And generative AI, you know, when you think about the Turing test, right? You know, when we could see if a machine was a machine or if it's a human, like, that was the test that was, you know, way back when. Now, today, the test is, can we get an AI machine to make $1 million? And we'd have no interference with it. So that's the new Turing test. Mustafa Suleiman has been one of the great proponents of that. I think we'll actually see that getting solved in the within the decade. And so when you have an agent of sorts that can work and make money, you can start to deploy that in a country that has very lenient AI regulation. And I think you might actually be able to see some really wild things happen. So, yes.
Like self-driving cars instead of these taxis that are from the 60s with white.
Well, they don't need transportation. That's the cool thing about Japan, right?
Taxis are from the 60s, and we are in Tokyo, and Japan is one of the greatest auto markets in the world.
Yeah.
How do you reconcile the two? This is
I told you, it makes me go WTF. Like, we could be here all night. That's a great point. And, like, literally, yes. I agree. Any more questions? I could literally talk about this stuff all day. What's up?
Before going to the crowd, because
Yeah.
you have mentioned also during your presentation about the Prime Minister of Japan. Now
Yes.
you're mentioning about authorities. Just a simple question. What do you think other authorities, like government authorities, they have to learn from the Japanese authorities in order to facilitate even more doing any kind of business, and so forth?
Man, that's tough because Japan's unique in the sense that it's in the East and it's not associated with the West. Or, I mean, it is, but it's not. Like, it's still its own thing largely. Whereas you get, like, America and Europe, and you look at the AI regulation that is existing. Like, you've got the House of Lords and Parliament in the UK side, and how they're regulating AI, and you know, there's a lot of misunderstandings that happen. The same thing is happening in the U.S., where it's like the people that are writing the laws they're not that close to it. Whereas in Japan, the people are so old, they're like, I don't want to do any more work. You said this AI could do that thing? Okay, you show us that it can do it, and, like, we'll get out your way. I don't know if I would say that we should follow that, but I think it's something we should watch. And even if it does work for Japan, I think the use case is so unique here that we should not actually copy it.
Oh, regardless of the age, I think there is something to learn out of it.
Yeah, I mean, be bold, take bets. Yeah, I mean, as far as regulatory hurdles, you know, partner with public and private sector, and, you know, go for gold, right? Like, take a very, very large, heavy and hairy, audacious goal and say, we want 100 unicorns in 3 years.
Who is the next bold guy in the room? Please.
Quick question.
What's up?
Do you think Japanese students and professors would be interested in collaborations with foreign companies? And if yes, what would be the best way to build relationships with them?
Go ahead, shoot me an email or just get in contact with me, and yes, they'll do it. I know several professors that I've worked with that are looking for help. Like they don't know how to export their ideas or even ask for help. Really, Yosuke can probably speak to that. Japanese people aren't gonna just reach out for help.
I mean, I can translate. Yes.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. They're saying, well, yeah. No, yeah. He's saying he's offering help. Actually, he's saying, hey, if you have ideas, he can translate it in the Japanese way, so that way it fits. So there you go. You've got two people here that can help you with that.
Thanks.
Hey, thank you. Can you culturally maybe speak about the differences? It's like quite a swing, no? Like a very traditional, very sort of like stuck in this honor society country that suddenly now is like betting very heavily on economic growth, whereas other countries that are maybe not so feudalistic in culture are not doing that and you know, kind of squabbling internally and having like a lot of issues uniting a vision and driving towards that vision of economic and technological development. Can you maybe speak as to why Japan got that, or it seems like they're getting it right, and maybe other countries like in Western Europe or in the United States are not doing that so well?
That's a good question. I think to answer your question, to answer your question there, like there's when you think about Japan and just where it's at, I think the challenges that they've had are they're uniquely suited for Japan, right? Like, I mean, very few companies exist for 10 years have it, right? 25 years in America, 50 years, right? Once you get past 50 years, you know what I mean, you've joined an elite rank. Japan's got companies that are 100 years old, and they've got companies that are 1,000 years old, right? So their structure and approach to doing business and how they've done export, import, and the systems that they've designed and the way that, like, to your point on the honor and the tradition, like, it's so ingrained and it worked for so long that, you know, to let that go, it's kind of tough. And you look at Toyota, very, very, very innovative company, and they've like fought the whole concept of like EVs. Right? They've been hybrid, and then finally they're like, okay, let's develop a new battery and let's partner with some people. But like, even still, they didn't say we're all in on EVs. And so I think that mentality has many benefits, and we all can see the merits of that success. But at the same time, like we really don't know if the bets that they're making today are going to pay off in the future, because it could very well go the opposite way. Like when I said like this situation here. If I'm right or if I'm wrong, I learned a lot. Like this could literally be the Hail Mary, and like it could get it wrong. And you know, to Elon Musk's point, like Japan could be a third world country. I hope that answered your question. I know you had a lot in there. Go ahead.
Hey, so given the cultural differences between Japan and a very Latin country like Romania, and given what you and others just mentioned regarding business acumen and business approach to things, how would you go about expanding your business from Romania to Japan, especially from a cultural standpoint? As in, you need to understand the culture. You can't just go, you know, doing your own thing the same way you're doing it here. You have to adapt your business in order to expand to.
So there's two things I would say, and this has always been true. When you look at Phil Knight and Nike and you read his book Shoe Dog, he talks about his journey to Japan and how that transformed what we would now know as Nike, right? What I'm going to say there is you have to go see it for yourself. Even if you just go as a tourist and you look at it and you observe it and you make a point about the taxis and the subways and the juxtaposition of like they're using technology from the 60s and 70s and integrating it with the future, and they've got more Apple Pay mechanisms in their taxis that are 40 years old than we have in convenience stores down the street. And the question that you then ask yourself is like, what can I learn personally? And then from that observation, I think it's like working either with a broker. If you need help with that, you can reach out to me, or you can do your own research. There's a lot of people that help connect Japanese companies to European companies and outside companies. But once you've kind of got a feel for it, then you'll know if this is something you want to do or not. And I think the best way to do that is to visit it or to just research the culture very in-depthly. We got one in the back.
Okay.
Hi, Q. Congrats on your time on stage today. It was very impressive.
Thank you.
You mentioned a lot about how the public sector involves in creating technology and developing this stuff. But how about business to business? How about, let's say, private sectors? How hard is to sell, let's say, emerging and new technologies to small and medium companies, not big giants that can easily adopt those new technologies?
You talking about in Japan?
Yeah, in Japan.
So the funny thing is, there's not that many small to medium-sized businesses in Japan. Like it's all pretty large corporations that you're going to work with that you're going to get scale from. So there are smaller companies, but those smaller companies are usually like mom and pop shops that have decent scale, or like family-owned businesses that either have been passed down through generations, or they're just that's what the family does. And so they do decent cash flow, but those businesses they're not going to really work out well for you because they're fighting a whole nother war in the sense that the currency right now, it's hard to retain. It's not retaining its value. So like,
yeah, in Romania and also in the European Union, we have some, let's say, grants that are, done by the states or by the other institutes that helps small and medium companies to buy and to invest in some, new technologies.
So they have the same thing, but like the government, because they're trying to also stabilize their currency. To your point earlier, what you were talking about with stabilizing their economic growth, they're actually kind of shooting themselves on the foot on the medium, the small size businesses. Here's a good example. They're changing, actually, is it next week? They're changing the bill. They're introducing the new currency. So none of the vending machines are going to work. Yeah, this month. So that's happening now. So the currency is going to change in the country. And when you go to Japan, you'll notice that it's still very much a cash economy. They're starting to migrate to digital, but it's still very much a cash economy. Right now, vending machines, they have one vending machine for every 23 people. So when you think about that, like a lot of your life runs off these vending machines. And when you go to the vending machines, literally starting this month, you have the old currency. There's a lot of old currency in circulation. It's a cash-based economy. The new currency that is being introduced will actually not work in any of the old vending machines. So that infrastructure has to be taken out. They've got grants that they're going to, deploy, but there's going to be a lot of small businesses that just don't make it because now they can't even get the money that they were going to get inevitably because there's no other form of payment and adoption. Now Square or Block now, that's what they're called. Block has done a great job of identifying those small businesses that exist and like partnering with them and offering them strategic loans, which is weird because Block's a private company and a foreign company at that, but they're helping like bolster the SMB side of Japan, but they're giving them like strategic business loans. So a lot of this stuff is going to make you go WTF, but you just have to take a deep breath and then say, okay, all right, I think I have to do a top-down, trickle-down economics viewpoint here, which is not typically the process that you would use to grow a business like yours, but you want to work with the big companies in the beginning. And then here's the crazier part. You get a contract with the big company, then you can work with everybody. And like the crazier part too is if you get that contract with the big company, you're pretty much guaranteed to work with the government now. So now you've got the government and the big company, and so you've got like basically a fast pass to doing business in the country as long as you've kept your reputation good. Now your reputation will precede you, and that's why those first impressions really do matter.
Thanks. Some more questions?
I can have one more.
We got a couple.
I did have one. So.
$5 for the second question, but yes, you may go.
Okay, so you know that there is a lot of this concept of not godfathering, but mentor in Japan.
Yeah.
So how do you reach to these mentors? Because they have a lot of influence in the organization, in the government, in a lot of local communities.
You got some good questions. That's a tricky one. The $1 million answer to that is you go to the mentor and you put them on your board. Well, you actually know who the Ogura-sans are. You're gonna get what I mean when I say Ogura-san. Ogura-san, like the old Japanese guy that like everybody pays homage to in the company, in any company. Like Ogura-san. Yeah, I'm confusing you, but no worries. Yeah, you take Ogura-san and you go to him and you say, literally, hey, I respect you. Will you serve on my board? And then when you have that, now take the mentorship, but have it apply through the entire company. So waterfall down a little bit. And I've seen that work really well. And like you can do your board seats however. It's a board of advisors, board of observers, board of directors, however you do it, but make sure you have visibility and it's a noteworthy position.
I think the gentleman with his blue shirt behind the first gentleman with the blue shirt wants to ask a question, right?
Yes, thanks. If you go to Japan, very deliberately provocative saying, everything you hear is yes, yes, yes. How can you know that you are on a good track or falling down the cliff after the first funding?
Yeah, I mean, Japanese people don't say no. So you're not going to get a no from a Japanese person. And if they do tell you no, they're not Japanese. They're not Japanese. So you have to stick with it. And if you work with people that work with Japanese people all the time that they know and trust, it's actually a little bit easier. And then you don't have to work with them forever, but work with them long enough to learn the tells and some of the nuances. And it differs by generation. So younger people are different in how they do it than in their demeanor. I would say the people in their 30s and 40s are a little bit renegades. So you can find someone that has a lot of old traditions or someone that has like this new hybrid tradition. And that can be unique because at some points they'll work like the Western world. And at other points they'll work like the Japanese way, and you just never know which state they're in, and so that can be the sneaky one. And then if you're working with someone that's a little bit older, and it's traditional, you know what to expect. You show up and you've got to be on point.
Here, you mentioned that it's very easy to make a first bad impression. And that once you do, there is no going back. How can you assure that you make a first good impression?
I mean, this is why I made you saw my first companies in Japan were very unique, right? So I wrote the Japanese handbook. So if you want the information, we put it in a book. If you want to get the video courses, I made an app, learnjapanese.com, right? If you want to watch the documentary because you like Netflix, we're working on that. That's going to come out in a few months. And you saw a little bit of that on stage. But I'm giving you the resources of like, hey, I went through it. I struggled. These were my observations. Take those as field notes and then, kind of make your own playbook from there. But the only way you're going to learn is through research. Like you have to actually spend time with this culture and just pay ultimate respect. If you do that, life will be good. But if you don't do that, life will be pretty tricky.
Thank you.
What's up?
Maybe it's a stupid question, but you said earlier that some people are working on businesses created with AI to make billions of whatever currency. So is it possible for an AI to create a product and sell it and create income out of it?
Yeah, so there's a book called The Coming Wave by Mustafa Suleiman, and that book is about that. Well, it's one of the premises of that book is about what you're just asking me. I'd recommend reading it. It's called The Coming Wave by Mustafa Suleiman, and it's a really, really good book. And yes, I do think within the next decade, or actually probably within this decade, there's enough smart people working on it, we will see an agent of sorts sell and make its own money without human intervention.
Okay, thank you.
2 more questions, guys, regarding the time. So, okay.
Here.
Yeah.
Sorry. My question is not necessarily business-wise, but a little bit more personal. You handle businesses in general, but whenever you have a startup, you want to sell your idea, right? But you as a person will have to sell yourself, and then you'll have to sell your idea, because from what you're saying and what your demeanor is, from what I'm seeing, you're selling yourself first, you as a person. But I'm asking you, how did you get the confidence so far to actually build up and say, I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm selling. This is gonna work. How did that go for you? Because you seem also very young.
No, thank you. That's a good question. I think reps, like going through the circuit, I wasn't always this confident. And the thing about the internet is it tells. So you can go back and watch a video of me in 2015 or 2014 and like did the same exact things, but didn't have the same outcomes. And so you learn every time you go through the circuit, and you have to practice. You practice every time you talk to someone, whether it be your mom, your friends, your investors, your business partners, like your customers. You're actually practicing selling yourself. That's going to come through your confidence, but that's also going to come through the products that you believe in. Like if you're selling a product you don't believe in, people can feel that. If you sell a product that you're passionate about, people will feel that as well. And guess what? Like that's going to help enable you to, be more confident and have a definitive knowledge about what you're talking about.
Right. So how did you overcome failure during your career?
I mean, I failed a lot, and I failed publicly, and I just just said like, hey, no one cares more about this than me. So, if I'm the only one that's gonna, care about my fuck up, like then it is what it is. So, it's tough. There's no easy pill that I can tell you to take, but like just know that 99% of small businesses fail. Right. And there's also a bunch of businesses now that should fail, but they know someone and they're like, hey, can I get some capital? Hey, can I get some capital? And they just get this lifeline of capital, and they drag on for decades. It's okay to fail in this game. Like, only 1% of people win. So even if we were to go bet and play a game of tic-tac-toe or even rock, paper, scissors, you have better odds than starting a company. So embellish it, but also just live in the moment a little bit.
Right. Thank you. I appreciate your answer.
Yeah. So you step up quick, and then you just continue to move on.
You did it, of course. You know what I mean. Yeah, I mean, you mess up, and you're just like, all right, well, I got to fix it. Clean it up.
Absolutely. Now, thank you very much, Q. I think it was really impressive and really good takeouts from you. And thank you very much to everybody in the room, because there was very, very good and interesting questions. And really hope you to see coming back to Romania as often as possible and telling us stories about whatever Japan, whatever corner of this world, and help us learning together.
You're welcome. And also, one last point. Anybody that wants to come to Japan, study Japan, get introduced to Japanese businesses, just reach out to me. Meet me. I'll be around at the back. But get my contact information and, let's figure it out, because I'm learning just as much as you all are. And so, partnering up with you, and if you've got a dev shop and you want to know how to make it happen, I mean, we can learn together, and we can go to this destination a lot faster that way, I think.
That's very kind of you. Thank you very much.